In this video, we're going to explore a couple special Boolean functions that Excel has and look at conditional formatting. We've already entered an example of some data. In this case, it's going to be some students who have taken 5 assignments. And what we want at the end is we want to have a summary table with the students' names and what their average assignment grade is. So what I want to do is currently it has the first name, the middle name, and the last name in 3 separate columns. And I want to just have student name over here, and I want to combine them all together. We've already learned the concatenate operator, the ampersand. So what I could do is I can say I want Sally, and then what I'm going to do is concatenate in a space, and then Anne, concatenate in the space, and then Johnson. That looks pretty nice. I'm going to fill that down, and something looks a little bit off. Bob Smith now has 2 spaces in his name. So if I look at the actual formula, it's taking B4 and then it's inserting a space, and then it's taking C4 and then inserting a space, and then D4. But Bob's parents chose not to give him a middle name. It's not Bob's fault he doesn't have a middle name. So what can we do? There's lots of different ways we can fix this problem, but I'm going to show you a very particular one using the if function that we have seen before. So what I'm going to do is put right in the middle here if, and what I'm going to use is a very special function that says is blank. So if C3 is blank, then I'm going to do nothing. Otherwise, I'm going to use C3 and an extra space. So let me just copy this down, make sure it works. Looks pretty good. Bob was fixed, and Peter Zimmer looks much better. So now let's take a look at this formula, which is a little complicated, but not too bad. First, I take B3, and then I add in a space. And then I specifically say, I check to see if the middle name is blank. And if the middle name is blank, I actually put in nothing. You'll notice there I actually put in nothing. If it's not blank, then I actually want the middle name and another space. All right, there are lots of different ways I could have done this logic. I could have, for example, checked to see what's the length of the middle name. Is that greater than 0? But I want to highlight this special formula called isBlank. There's a few of these special Excel functions that can be quite handy if you know how to use them. We're going to see another one shortly, but this is the first one we're going to see. So now we've got the name, and what I want to do now is calculate their average. All right, so what I'm going to do is take the average of their 5 assignments. Sally was sick for one, but that's okay. She was excused for that. And we're going to copy that down. Uh-oh, we now have a problem. Alex didn't show up for any of his exams. So what happens is the average function is trying to take all the numbers that occur here and then divide by the number of things there, which is 0. And when you divide by 0, you get what's called a singularity. Now, if you're used to science fiction movies, a singularity is often a black hole that'll suck in everything around it. Or if you watch the Terminator movies, the singularity point is the point at which the artificial intelligence becomes smart enough to kill all the humans. Fortunately, Excel is not doing any of that, but what it is doing is displaying an error message. And that doesn't make our spreadsheet look very nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually change this formula, and I'm going to say there's a special function in Excel to say isn't an error. So if is error, if the average is an error, then I'm going to say not available. If it's not an error, then I'm just going to calculate the average again. So now watch what happens here. And now it looks a little bit nicer. Now we see the average for Alex is not available. Of course, we could put whatever we want in there, and most instructors would probably give 0. So we now use the special Boolean function called isError to determine if something is an error. But let's take a look at this function. It's not ideal because we've actually had to enter the average function twice. We said first calculate the error, average. If it's an error, then use the text not available. Otherwise, let's recalculate the average again. That's not very efficient. So Excel actually has a very special function, and I'm just going to start typing it from scratch. And it's called if error. Okay, so let's take a look at what if error does. Is it calculates a value, in this case, average of these cells over here. If that is an error, then I'm going to specify what to give it if there is an error. So I don't have to recalculate average twice. I'll just put in 0 and say if it's an error, then produce 0. Otherwise, produce the value you actually calculated. And there we go. So in this case, Alex now has 0. So we've now introduced two functions, is blank and is error. Both of those can be used to make your spreadsheets more robust and handle errors a little bit more gracefully. The last feature we're going to show is something fancy in Excel called conditional formatting. Say we want to see at a quick glance students that are failing and have an average below 50. So what I'm going to do is highlight the averages here, and I'm going to go up to conditional formatting, and you'll see a bunch of different things. There's a lot of sophisticated things you can do, and if you want to become an expert at Excel, you can play with some of these things. They really do make some of your Excel spreadsheets pop and show some interesting things. But I'm just going to do a very simple rule here. If those cells are less than, so I went to conditional formatting, highlighting cells rules. If they're less than 50, then I'm going to fill them in with light red with dark red text. And there we go. We've now highlighted certain cells that have not met a certain criteria. All right, if all of a sudden Alex comes through and wow, he actually scored 100, he's no longer going to fail this course because he got 100 on that assignment. All right, I just undid that. As I mentioned, there's a lot of advanced conditional formatting things. You can actually use color scales to show a wide range of values. You can even use icons, things like check marks or X's to indicate special values in your spreadsheet. And they're just there to help you interpret the data.